7.62 by 39 is one of the best introductory rounds in Escape from Tarkov. It is the equalizer for low-level players and high-level players alike. Today we're going to talk about some budget recommendations, however, how to tame the recall of these monsters and slay chads for cheap. Stick around and find out some of the most underrated builds in Escape from Tarkov and some awesome budget slayers. Before we jump in the builds here today, I want to remind you guys that I do stream on Twitch. The link for that will be featured down in the description below if you have any questions about any of the builds you see here today, as well as screenshots will be featured in the description below for all the builds I'm about to talk about today as well. Let's jump straight into the hideout and not waste your time. And I've actually crafted a green gunpowder here at level 2 workbench. Now, actually, if you do some quick math, you can realize that if you do 2 M67 grenades and a smoke grenade, you can craft a green gunpowder every hour and 30 minutes. Now, if you can buy the green grenades here, the M67s from Peacekeeper yourself, it's actually a pretty good value. In fact, you can make a decent amount of money here. Now, materials are going to cost you about 27,000 rubles, and the return is about 80 to 90,000 rubles per green gunpowder, which means you can make about 50,000 rubles or so each time you do this. Now, the best part about this trade is if you have a level 3 workbench, you can actually take the green gunpowder and craft 120 BP every 2 hours and basically 30 minutes. And with this trade, you can actually either make about 64,000 rubles profit if you sell the ammo for about 1,200 rubles, or you can actually take that BP and use it. Now, the best part is with BP is it's an insane round, and I've actually done a lot of stuff on this ammo before, but the truth with BP is it's just simply nutty. Now, you can buy it from Vepr here once you've done the Punisher Part 6, and you can actually buy it for 847 rubles per round. Now, on the flea market, however, BP can actually be quite ludicrous, sometimes higher than 1,200 rubles per round, which is actually not that great value. But the truth is, green gunpowder does vary in price, and that means the BP will also vary in price. If you guys want to know the difference between PS and BP, I do have a separate video describing the difference between the two, and I'll link that in the description down below. But I would always recommend top loading BP and then maybe filling the bottom half of your mag with some PS, just to save some money. Alright, let's get into the first trade here today, and that is the Vepr 136. And this beautiful piece of weaponry can actually be traded from skier level 1 for 2 bronze horses. However, I want to point out that the horses aren't always the best value because sometimes buying the gun may be cheaper. So double check the price of horses and sometimes you may actually get a good deal. However, not all the time this is true. If you check for the price of the Vepr Hunter, you can find some with good attachments for about 15 to 16,000 rubles. Some are missing dust covers and etc, so try and get the one with all the parts on it. The modding on this gun is very simple. Starting with a butt pad from Vepr, and then we're going to be straight for the compensator. With the compensator, we can use the JMac, the RRD4C here, as it has the best stats. However, if you can't afford this, you can use others like the Venom Antidote. We're going to be throwing a Tactica Tula TTO1, and we're going to be choosing a multitude of scopes, but the best value here is going to be the P1X Weaver, as it is the cheapest off the flea market that goes directly onto the TTO1. And that's it for this build here. Now, this thing is incredibly cheap, and it probably comes back every single time you may die with it, and the best part is it's only 41,000 rubles, and it's an insane little budget cannon. If you guys are enjoying this video so far, feel free to subscribe. I am going to be working on this for other guns, so let me know in the comments down below which one you'd like to see next, and I may consider it. Once you finish with this gun, however, you can do a few things like maybe throwing on the UAS AK stock. Now, this thing is about 17,000 rubles from Peacekeeper, and you can notice that the recoil is actually insane. However, when you spend this much money on an AK, it may not actually come back, so keep that in mind. Now, the Simonov SKS is a beautiful weapon in the early game, but the problem with the SKS is that the brown version here, the non-hunting version, is around the same price as the 136, however you can't mount a scope. Now, if you do want to mount a scope, you're going to need the hunting variant, and the problem is a lot of the time, you have to find one that has a built-in OP rail on it so you can actually throw those dovetail scopes on. Now, the problem with this gun, however, is you cannot buy the rail until you have Jaeger leveled. So this is something that you need to think about, and they are quite expensive on the flea market. You can use the EKP or the PSOs, but my recommendation would be the OKP7 dovetail. And always extend the mag, although you can actually top load, which means you don't need a spare mag to reload bullet by bullet. The best part about the SKS is the 20 rounds is probably the best way to run this gun, as sometimes 9 to 10 rounds just simply isn't enough. You can also suppress this gun, making it one of the quietest guns in the game. However, when you buy the suppressor, you actually put a fair bit of money into the gun, and it probably won't ever come back. The suppressor is actually going to set you back 35,000 rubles, meaning with a suppressor, this gun is actually significantly more expensive at 95,000 rubles or 60,000 without. The Romanian dong or the handguard here, the WASR, can also be thrown on the 136 with the build that I talked about earlier. And the best part about this build is it's going to be around the same price, about 60,000 rubles or 62,000 rubles, which is exactly the same as the stock SK without a suppressor. Now, if we look at the two side by side, this is why I'd recommend the 136, as it not only has a 30 round mag, but also has less recoil. You are going to be noticing that the reset time between shots is actually lower, and the distance the muzzle climbs between each individual shot is also lower. Now, when I spam the gun, however, it is slightly less accurate, as I'm spamming it quite quickly. But something like the SKS, if it is suppressed, is very, very quiet. However, you can notice the muzzle climb is a lot more significant here, going well above the target with each reset. But when you do spam the gun, however, it seems that the shots group a lot better, even though I'm spamming as fast as I can. So this is something you need to think about. As the SK has the option to top load, these are the things you may consider when comparing them. Now, looking at the different AKs, you may be a little bit confused why I'm recommending a semi-automatic gun. And that's because the other guns that I've done videos about, like the AK-103, are actually just simply better, statistically, but far more expensive across the board. There are multiple different choices, but the best option here is going to be the AKMS, as it is the cheapest, but it doesn't have a dovetail rail, which means you can't use the Cobras. Now, as we look towards the AKMSN, this one with the underfolder stock actually has a dovetail rail, and they're reasonably priced as well because they're quite ugly. People sell them for around 22,000 rubles. Now, for the modding, it's incredibly simple. We are going to be using the JMac once again, as it has the best statistics here. As we move towards the stock, we're only going to be throwing a butt pad on there because that's the best thing you can do. You've also got the choice between cheap scopes like the Cobra EKP, but my personal favorite is going to be the OKP7, as I feel like the reticle is a lot easier to use and it sways less. But this is obviously up to you. You can put whatever you want on here and change the dust cover if that's what you're into. Now, with the mods in this gun, and that's simply just it, it's going to cost you about 60,000 rubles. Now, this is the same price as a fully modded 136, but it has the option to go full auto. Now, if we look at the two side by side between the 136 and the AKMSN, we are going to be noticing that they're pretty much identically the same, except the MSN has worse ergo, and it also has one extra vertical recoil. Now, this is not a big issue because it comes with the fun switch, and the ability to go full auto in close quarters combat is quite a nice option to have. Now, if you are going to be going full auto, however, I would recommend spending a little bit of extra cash here with the Zenit B10 handguard. Now, you got different options, but the Zenit B10 is the cheapest. As soon as you get the Zenit B10, you can throw on any grip your heart desires. But there are many different options, but the Viking UVG and the Zenit RK0 are the best value options. Now, this is going to set you back about 72,000 rubles, but it's definitely worth bumping down that recoil with the grip and also the handguard. And if you are going to go auto, you'll thank me later, as this gun does have significantly high recoil if you don't put the grip on it. Now, if we look at the distance between the reset, however, once with the grip, you're going to be noticing that in the single shot reset, it is actually significantly better than the 136. And the reset time is also faster, which means you can spam it in single fire just that little bit quicker. And in full auto, it is quite wild, but still manageable because I can keep most of the mag on target. Well, that's it for this video. If there's a certain gun you'd like to see me do next, let me know in the comments down below and I may consider it. Subscribe for future content, guys. I am going to be working on more ammo testing and other awesome content in future. I've just been pretty flat out with Christmas, guys. I hope you guys have a great holiday season. And as always, we'll see you on the next one.